Welcome to the Deep Dive podcast, where we unlock the secrets to mastering the English language. In today's episode, we're diving deep into the world of vocabulary building. Whether you're a student, a professional, or simply a language enthusiast, expanding your vocabulary is crucial for effective communication. We'll explore proven techniques for memorizing new words, practical tips for incorporating them into your daily life, and powerful strategies to enhance your language skills. So, if you want to speak more fluently and
to
Vocab.
yes. Building that vocabulary.
Building it up.
Exactly. We got
Two articles
two awesome articles.
to unpack here.
Yeah. One is all about just general strategies for any language.
Right.
And then the other one is English vocabulary specific. So no matter what you're working on,
There's going to be something in here for you.
there's something in here for you. You ready to supercharge that word power?
It's more than just memorizing to the brain science behind how we actually learn vocab.
I love that.
And I think we've got some surprising strategies in here that might just change the way you approach language learning.
I am ready. Let's kick things off
Okay.
with a tip that really resonated with me from the article.
Okay.
How to memorize new vocabulary faster. And it's all about using real-life context.
Ooh, I like that.
And they actually had this kind of quirky example
Okay.
about learning flavor names by eating ice cream,
So fun.
which is like very specific,
Yeah.
but I feel like it would work.
Context is so important for memory.
Totally.
Think about it, like our brains are wired to make connections.
Okay.
So when you learn a word in isolation, it's like this lone little island floating out in the sea of your mind.
It's all alone.
It's all alone. But when you experience that word, like in real life, then you're building these bridges to your existing knowledge,
I see.
and it becomes part of the landscape.
So it's not about those like dry vocabulary lists.
Yeah.
It's about
Encountering the words.
encountering them in the wild.
Yes.
The article also talked about immersion, like, studying abroad.
Sure.
But it also said you can create mini immersions at home.
Exactly. And that's what's so cool. So, if you're learning Italian,
Okay.
try making some pasta from scratch
Okay.
and listening to like some Italian opera.
Okay. I like it.
Your brain is going to start to connect those words with like kneading the dough. The smell of the sauce.
Yeah.
And suddenly those Italian words become more than just words.
Right.
They have meaning,
Yeah.
emotion.
It's an experience.
It's an experience. And
Yes.
that makes all the difference for memory.
I love that. It's like tricking your brain into thinking you're actually there.
Yes.
And it reminded me of something I saw in the other article, Master English Vocabulary.
Okay.
It's this technique they call learning more about the word.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay.
Interesting.
They use the word available as an example,
Okay.
which like at first glance I was like,
Yeah.
really?
A little dry.
A little dry,
Yeah.
but then they broke it down.
Okay.
They looked at the pronunciation. They were
Yeah.
like, does it have any other meanings?
Right.
What part of speech is this?
Yeah.
They even looked at synonyms and antonyms.
I love this.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, because when you take the time to dissect a word like that,
Yeah.
you're engaging in deep processing.
Okay.
It's not just memorizing.
Yeah.
You're understanding all the nuances, right?
Where'd the word come from?
The etymology.
Yes. How does it connect to other words?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And that makes a big difference.
So we're giving those words the VIP treatment.
Yes.
Making them feel right at home in our brains.
Exactly. And the more connections you make,
Yeah.
the stronger those pathways become in your brain.
Okay.
And the easier it is to remember.
Gotcha. So we've talked about context,
Mhm.
deep processing.
Yeah.
Now let's inject some fun.
Okay.
This article, How to Memorize New Vocabulary Faster, had a whole section on mnemonics.
Mnemonics.
Those like sometimes cheesy but often effective memory tricks.
Yes.
They can be fun.
They might be cheesy, but they work.
They work. They had this example about remembering the word accommodation
Yeah.
by picturing two cots that
Perfect.
need two mattresses.
Two cots, two mattresses accommodation.
Oh.
Like it.
And then they had one for store
Haha.
using the first letter of each item on a shopping list.
Oh, that's good.
It's like milk, oranges,
Yeah.
whatever's on your
Raisins.
store.
There you go.
Yeah,
It sounds ridiculous.
it does.
But that's why it works.
Okay.
Our brains.
Yeah,
They love novelty.
I do.
They love humor.
Yeah.
So when you make this bizarre image
Uh-huh.
or this funny little story to go with the word,
Yeah.
it stands out
It
from all the
elevates
other
it
noise.
highlighting it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like a big neon sign.
In your brain.
In your brain.
I love it. So it's like giving those words personality.
Yes.
So they're these unforgettable characters
Uh-huh.
in the story of our vocabulary journey.
I love that.
That was beautiful.
Ah.
Have you ever used mnemonics in your language learning?
Of course. I still remember this one mnemonic. I used to learn the Spanish word for butterfly,
Okay.
which is mariposa.
Mariposa.
So picture this.
Okay.
A mariachi band
Okay.
chasing a giant ear of corn
What?
through a field.
Ew.
It's so absurd,
I can't even.
but you'll never forget it. You're right.
Mariposa.
Mariposa. Now that's an image that's going to stick with me.
There you go.
Speaking of memorable advice,
Okay.
the Master English vocabulary article had this point that really surprised me.
Okay.
They said, don't learn too many words at once.
Oh, that's good advice.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought more was always better.
I know we tend to think that,
Yeah.
but our brains have limits.
Okay.
It's like trying to drink from a fire hose.
Yeah,
You're just going to get drenched.
Right.
You're not going to actually absorb the water.
Yeah.
Same with vocabulary.
Okay.
When you overload your brain,
Uh-huh.
you get cognitive overload.
It just doesn't stick.
It doesn't stick. So instead of cramming,
Yeah.
focus on quality over quantity.
Okay.
Choose a few words.
Uh-huh.
Really go deep with them.
Okay.
Understand them.
So space repetition is key, Dan.
Yes.
This actually ties back to the first article
Okay.
where they emphasize repeating words over time. It's like these articles are having a conversation with each other.
I know. It's all connected.
They are. And that's the cool thing about this deep dive.
I know.
We're taking all these little pieces of advice
Yeah.
and like weaving them together
Yes.
in this awesome vocabulary building strategy.
It's not just what to do.
Right.
It's why.
Exactly. I'm already feeling inspired to revamp my language learning routine.
Yes.
Speaking of personalized approaches,
Okay.
both articles stressed finding the tools that work for you.
So important. There's no one size fits all.
Right.
Just like there's no one perfect diet.
Yeah.
No one perfect exercise plan.
Right.
No magic bullet for language learning.
So true. Some people thrive with flashcards.
Yep.
Others need an app.
Mm-hmm.
Some people just need a good old-fashioned book.
Whatever works for you.
It's like finding that perfect workout routine.
Exactly.
You got to experiment.
Yep.
See what you enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
What actually helps you reach your goals.
And what are your strengths?
Right. Maybe you're a visual learner and you love using imagery and mind maps.
Totally.
Or maybe you're an auditory learner,
Yeah.
so you like listening to podcasts and having conversations.
That's me.
The key is to know yourself and what works for you.
That's the key.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to mix and match.
Oh, yeah.
Like maybe you use flashcards to memorize some nouns.
Okay.
And then you make up silly sentences with them
I love that.
to practice using them in context.
Yeah.
Or maybe you listen to a podcast
Yeah.
while you're cooking a meal
Yes.
inspired by that culture.
I love it.
The possibilities are endless.
Endless.
The more creative you are,
Uh-huh.
the more fun and effective your vocabulary building's going to be.
Totally.
This is so empowering. It feels like we're cracking the code
Yes.
to language learning.
One tip at a time.
One tip at a time.
But I...
But hold on, tight language enthusiasts,
Okay.
because we've got even more vocabulary boosting wisdom to unpack in part 2.
Can't wait.
We'll be back after a quick break.
See you then. You know, it's fascinating
Yeah.
how we approach language learning with this like ambition
Yeah.
to conquer the whole lexicon.
Yeah, we want all the words.
All the words.
It's true. It can feel like climbing Mount Everest sometimes,
It really can.
especially when you're staring at this giant list.
Yes.
What if,
What?
instead of focusing on the summit,
Yeah.
we just enjoyed the climb?
I love that.
Yeah.
Embrace the journey.
One step at a time.
One step at a time. And both these articles had some really good ideas about that.
Okay.
Like one thing that really stood out to me
Mhm.
was connecting new words to your own life,
Right, making it personal.
making it personal.
Yeah, the Master English Vocabulary article actually asked this question.
Okay.
How does connecting new words to your own life make them easier to remember?
Such a good question.
It's like when you learn a new recipe
Yeah.
and you love it instantly
Okay.
because it uses all the ingredients you already love.
Exactly. Or like think about how you remember a funny story
Uh-huh.
because it reminded you of something
Yeah.
from your own life.
Yeah, totally. So it's not just about these abstract definitions.
No.
It's about making the words meaningful to us.
To you.
To me, to you, to everybody listening.
Everyone. Let's say you're learning the French word for garden,
Okay.
which is jardin.
Jardin.
Instead of just like drilling that word,
Yeah.
visualize your own garden.
Okay.
Or like a park you love to visit.
Okay.
Or you remember that time you tried to grow tomatoes?
Oh.
And it was a disaster.
Oh, no.
More weeds than tomatoes?
I've been there.
Right. And now you'll never forget jardin.
Jardin, those pesky weeds.
Exactly. The more vivid,
Oh.
the more personal, the stronger the memory.
Okay, so we've got context,
Yep.
deep processing,
Mhm.
mnemonics,
Yeah.
making it personal.
Yeah.
Are we missing anything?
Well, there's one more thing
Okay.
that's super important, but maybe not as glamorous,
Okay,
and that's repetition.
repetition.
I know it's not the most exciting thing.
It can be kind of a grind.
It can be, but it's how we get those words
Yeah.
from short-term memory
Uh-huh.
to long-term memory.
Okay?
Think about it like practicing an instrument.
Okay.
You're not going to master a concerto
No,
after playing it once.
definitely not.
It takes practice.
Yeah.
You got to go over those notes
Uh-huh.
again and again and again.
Yeah.
And eventually it becomes second nature.
Like muscle memory.
Yes. Same with vocab.
So the more we see a word,
Uh-huh.
the more we hear it,
Yeah.
the better we know it.
The more ingrained it becomes.
Okay, but both articles talked about
Okay.
spaced repetition.
Yes. So important.
Yeah, instead of cramming it all at once,
Right.
we space it out.
We space it out over time.
Yeah.
Which is much more effective.
And there are apps for that.
There are. They're amazing.
Yeah.
They use these algorithms to figure out like the best time to show you a word again.
So it's like a personal trainer
Yes.
for your vocabulary.
A real vocab.
Reminding you when to go to the mental gym.
Love it.
Work out those words.
And you can track your progress,
oh, that's cool.
which is motivating.
Yeah, it's like leveling up
Yes.
in a language learning video game.
I love it.
This is awesome. We've covered so much.
I know, right?
We've gone from context
Yep.
to mnemonics
Uh-huh.
to making it personal
Yeah.
to spaced repetition.
What's next?
I don't know, but there's one more part.
Okay.
So stay tuned.
Part 3 coming up.
All right, we are back.
For part 3.
Part 3 of our vocabulary deep dive.
The final chapter.
Yes. Okay, we've talked about context,
Yep. Yeah.
mnemonics,
Uh-huh.
spaced repetition,
All the good stuff.
all the good stuff.
But there's more.
I feel like our vocabulary boosting adventure isn't quite over yet.
Not quite.
What's that secret ingredient
You.
that turned vocab learning from a chore into something fun?
It's all about engagement.
Engagement.
Remember those mini immersions we
Yeah.
talked about?
Like cooking the paella,
yes.
listening to Spanish music,
Yeah.
or having that Italian feast
Uh-huh.
and listening to opera.
That's engagement.
So it's about making language learning active,
yes.
not just passive.
Not just sitting there reading a textbook.
Right. Like, would you rather read a textbook about Paris,
Okay.
or would you rather stroll down the Champs-Elysees,
Ooh, good question.
soaking up all the sights and sounds?
Definitely the Champs-Elysees.
Champs-Elysees.
It's an experience.
It's an experience.
Right.
And the Master English Vocabulary article had some good tips for this.
Right. They talked about games.
Games.
Writing practice sentences.
Oh.
Even like talking to yourself.
Okay, wait, what? Talking to yourself.
I know it sounds weird,
Yeah, a little bit.
but it works.
Okay, how so?
When you say the words out loud,
Uh-huh.
you're activating more parts of your brain, which helps you remember them better.
And so it's like a dress rehearsal
Exactly.
for your brain.
For the big performance,
I like it.
the more you rehearse,
Yeah.
the more confident you'll become.
All right, so we've got mini immersions,
Yep.
games,
Uh-huh.
writing,
Yeah.
self-talk. What else? What else can we do?
This one is my favorite.
Okay, lay it on me.
It's all about your passions.
Oh,
Find something you love,
okay.
something you're already interested in,
Uh-huh.
and connect it to your language learning.
So like if I'm a foodie,
Yeah.
I could try recipes
Yes.
from a cookbook
In another language.
in your target language.
That's a good idea.
Or if you love music,
Okay.
find podcasts
Uh-huh.
or interviews
Yeah.
with musicians
Uh-huh.
who speak that language.
So find that sweet spot
Yeah.
where your interests and your language goals
Collide.
collide.
It becomes this fun adventure.
A customized adventure.
Yes.
This has been amazing.
I know, right? We've gone from basic tips
Uh-huh.
to brain science.
We did a deep dive.
We did. Mnemonics,
Space repetition.
and most importantly,
Most importantly,
how to make it fun.
yes. Because if it's not fun,
Yeah,
you're not going to stick with it.
it's not going to work.
It's not going to work.
So to our amazing listeners,
Out there.
Did this deep dive spark your inner vocabulary, Victor?
Let us know.
Let us know in the comments.
And don't forget
to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your fellow language enthusiasts.
spread the word.
Spread the word. All right, so vocabulary building. Let's get into it.
Yes, let's.
You want to know how to get better at English, right? Well, today we are diving deep into
Two sources.
two sources.
Yeah.
One is called 5 Tips to Improve Your English Vocabulary,
Okay.
and that is from Learn English. And the other one is 6 Ways to Make Vocabulary Instruction Fun and Effective, and that's from National Geographic Learning. Now, what's so interesting is one is from the perspective of the learner, and the other is from the perspective of a teacher.
Right.
But we're going to kind of bring those together and like
Absolutely.
give you the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating how both sources, even though they're coming from those different angles, they land on the same idea that to really learn a word,
You have to do something with it.
yeah, you got to do something with it. You
You
can't
can't.
just stare at it.
Yeah, you can't just stare at it on the page. You know, it's like trying to learn to ride a bike by just reading the manual.
Exactly.
You got to get on and wobble a bit.
Exactly. And speaking of getting hands-on, the Learn English folks are big on writing things down. But they don't just mean the word itself, they mean definitions, translations.
Oh, so you're really kind of creating like a web
Yeah.
of understanding for this word.
Yeah. Even a little sketch.
Hold on, I'm picturing this. It's not just a list of words. It's like
Right.
a vocabulary map.
Yeah.
You got the word and then all these paths leading out to other ideas, and that's how you lock it in your brain.
I love that, a vocabulary map. Yeah, and it plays into how our memory works. The more connections you make, the easier it is to find your way back to that word later.
So it's like creating a pathway
Right.
to get to this word.
Exactly.
But don't we all just forget stuff anyway? Like, what's the point if my brain's just going to hit delete on half of it?
Well, you're not wrong to be skeptical. Learn English actually mentions that without reviewing what we learn, we only remember a measly 20 to 25%.
What?
It's like going to a buffet and only eating from one tiny plate.
Yeah.
You gotta go back for more.
Ouch. So how do we stop our brains from doing a vocabulary purge?
Well, the good news is even quick review sessions like 5 minutes a day can make a huge difference. Think of it as like a little mental jog to keep those words fresh.
Way better than an actual jog,
Right.
if you ask me.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've written it down. We're doing our mental sprints. What's next on our vocabulary boot camp?
Well, both sources are big fans of reading, but not just any kind of reading. It's about finding stuff that's actually engaging, like you're living in the language.
So it's less about like memorizing lists and more about
Yes,
soaking it up like a sponge.
precisely. Learn English calls it immersion through imagination.
Oh, fancy.
It sounds very fancy, but you get the idea. When you come across a new word while you're hooked on a story,
It sticks with you.
it sticks with you.
It's true. I still remember reading Alice in Wonderland when I was a kid and coming across the word chortle. Like the Cheshire Cat grinning popped in my head and I was like,
Oh, yeah.
I know what that means now.
Perfect example. And that brings us
No.
to a related point, context. Both sources stress that knowing a word's dictionary definition is just the tip of the iceberg.
Right. So it's not enough to just know what it means. You have to know
To use it.
how to use it. It's like, I might know that a wrench is a tool, but until I've seen someone use it to loosen a bolt, I don't really get it.
Exactly. Learn English even suggests writing down the entire sentence where you found a new word, just to get a feel for how it works in the wild.
Makes sense. It's all about using the language.
Yes.
Not just passively absorbing it.
Right.
So that's where that use it or lose it principle comes in.
You got it.
Yeah.
The Learn English article makes it very clear. If you want those new words to stick around, you got to put them to work. They even mention research suggesting that encountering a word about 10 times is what it takes for most people to really remember it.
10 times.
About 10 times.
Okay, challenge accepted.
Right.
I'm ready to unleash my newfound vocabulary on the world.
That's the spirit.
But I have a confession. Sometimes I'm a very visual learner. Like I need pictures, diagrams,
Sure.
something to help me see the word in my mind.
Yeah,
Is that valid?
absolutely. In fact, the National Geographic Learning Source is all about using visuals, especially for those concrete nouns. Think flashcards with images.
Right.
Simple but effective.
Simple but effective. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But what about words that are more abstract, like feelings or ideas?
Right.
Like flashcards won't really cut it for those.
That's where storytelling comes in, which is another big highlight in the National Geographic Learning article. They suggest weaving new words into a little story, even if it's silly.
Okay.
It helps those more abstract words come alive.
Okay, so like imagine I'm trying to learn the word serendipity.
Okay.
I could make up a story about accidentally finding a $20 bill on the ground.
Yeah.
And then having a series of other lucky events happen throughout the day.
Exactly. And the more outlandish or funny the story, the more likely you are to remember the word later on. It's all about making it memorable.
I love that. So it's like turning vocabulary learning into a game. Oh. Speaking of games, could we use actual games to make this whole process more fun?
Now you're thinking. The National Geographic Learning article is full of ideas for making vocabulary learning playful. We're talking matching games, scavenger hunts,
Oh.
even charades, anything that gets you interacting with the words in a dynamic way.
Hold on, I'm picturing a vocabulary-themed escape room.
Okay,
And you have to solve puzzles by using the correct definitions and synonyms.
I love it.
That could be awesome.
That's fantastic.
Right.
You're really getting the hang of this. But before we get too carried away with all the fun stuff, there's a word of caution from National Geographic Learning that I think is important to highlight.
Uh-oh. Don't tell me all this fun is too good to be true.
Not at all. It's
Okay.
just a matter of pacing yourself.
Yeah.
They caution against trying to learn too many new words at once, emphasizing quality over quantity.
So it's better to learn a few words really well than to try to cram a whole dictionary in my brain?
Precisely.
Okay.
They recommend focusing on 10 to 20 new words per session and really digging into their usage and meaning.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like I wouldn't try to eat 10 pizzas in one sitting.
Right.
It's better to savor a slice and really enjoy it.
Exactly.
But 10 to 20 words, that still seems like a lot to juggle at once. Any tips for keeping them all straight in my head?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. National Geographic Learning suggests tapping into the hidden structure of the English language.
Okay.
Roots, prefixes, and suffixes.
Okay, that sounds a bit intimidating. Can you break that down for me?
Sure, think of it like this. Words are like Lego blocks, made up of smaller pieces that carry meaning. For example, if you learn that the prefix un means not,
Okay.
suddenly you understand a whole bunch of words. Unhappy, unfair, unbelievable.
Whoa. That's true.
Right?
It's like cracking a code.
Exactly.
Suddenly I'm not just learning individual words. I'm learning how to build new words.
Yes.
This is blowing my mind.
Yeah. And once you start recognizing these patterns, you'll be amazed at how quickly your vocabulary expands. It's like having a secret weapon for decoding the English language.
Okay, I'm officially hooked on this word decoding mission.
Awesome!
But hold on, where do I even start? This all sounds great in theory,
Right.
but I need something practical.
Okay.
Something I can use to keep track of all these new words and word building tricks.
Ah, excellent question. For that, we turn to the final gem from National Geographic Learning, the Vocabulary Journal.
A journal. Like Dear Diary today, I learned the word serendipity.
That's the basic idea, but you can get way more creative than that.
Okay.
Think about organizing it by themes, by parts of speech, or even by the stories you create with the words.
Wait, so this isn't just a list of words. It's like a
Right.
personalized vocabulary playground
Oh.
where I can experiment and explore all these new words and concepts.
Exactly. It's about making it your own. Doodle in it, draw pictures, write poems, anything that helps those words stick in your mind.
Okay, this is starting to sound less like homework and more like an art project.
Good.
I'm into it.
And that's the key, isn't it? When you make learning fun and personal, it stops feeling like a chore and it starts feeling like a genuine exploration. And that's when the real magic happens.
I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah.
What did you say?
Yeah.
But don't go anywhere because we're going to be right back with more vocabulary building strategies. Stay tuned. I'm already feeling way more confident about tackling new words, but before we declare ourselves vocabulary victors,
Okay.
did we miss anything crucial?
Actually, there's one more point from National Geographic Learning that's worth emphasizing. It's almost a counterintuitive point, and it ties back to what we were saying about not overwhelming yourself. They caution against what they call overteaching.
Wait, overteaching.
Yeah,
But isn't more vocabulary always better?
that's what we tend to think, right? But they highlight research suggesting that focusing on a smaller set of words, say 10 to 20 per session, and really going deep with them,
Okay.
is more effective in the long run.
Ah, so it's like that saying, jack of all trades, master of none.
Ex-
Better to be a master of a few words than vaguely familiar with a ton of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it makes sense when you think about it. Trying to cram hundreds of new words at once is a recipe for mental indigestion.
Plus, how would you even use all those words naturally?
Right.
You'd sound like a walking thesaurus.
Exactly.
So smaller bites, deeper understanding.
Yes.
Got it. But how do we make sure those few words really stick?
That's where the real fun begins. They suggest finding ways to integrate those words into your daily life. Use them in conversations, slip them into emails, even try working them into your social media posts if you're feeling brave.
Okay, I like that. It's like giving those words a chance to strut their stuff on the real-world stage. No more hiding in the vocabulary notebook. It's time to shine.
Exactly. And the more you use those words in different contexts, the more they become a natural part of your communication style. It's like learning a new dance move. At first it feels awkward, but the more you practice, the smoother it gets.
I'm picturing myself casually dropping serendipity into a conversation with my barista. Oh, I just stumbled upon this coffee shop by serendipity. What a delightful find.
See, you're a natural.
Uh-huh.
And this idea of avoiding overteaching isn't just relevant for vocabulary. It applies to pretty much any skill we're trying to master.
Oh, that's interesting. So whether I'm learning to play guitar or trying to perfect my grandma's lasagna recipe,
Right.
it's better to focus on mastering one piece at a time.
Precisely. Trying to do too much at once just leads to overwhelm and discouragement. It's much more effective to break down a skill into smaller, manageable chunks and focus on getting those right.
I never thought about it that way, but it makes so much sense. I'm definitely guilty of trying to learn too many things at once and then getting frustrated when I don't see immediate results.
We've all been there. But remember, learning is a journey, not a race. And the more we can enjoy the process, the more likely we are to stick with it.
Okay, I'm officially giving myself permission to slow down and savor the learning process. No more cramming, no more overwhelm, just a steady, enjoyable exploration of new words and ideas.
That's the spirit. And remember, there's no one right way to learn vocabulary. It's all about finding what works best for you and having fun with it.
Experiment with different techniques, get creative, and don't be afraid to make mistakes along the way.
That's such a liberating way to think about it. It takes all the pressure off. But speaking of the journey, I'm curious, what's your personal vocabulary journey been like? Have there been any words that you've really struggled with or any aha moments that have stuck with you?
Oh, absolutely. I remember when I was first learning English, the word serendipitous completely baffled me.
Yeah.
It sounded so beautiful and complex, but I just couldn't wrap my head around its meaning.
I feel that some words just sound so intimidatingly elegant, like you almost don't want to use them for fear of mispronouncing them or using them in the wrong context. Exactly, but then one day I stumbled upon a quote by the poet John Keats, and it all clicked. He described poetry as a wording of that which is unconsciously within us, and he used the word serendipitous to describe the act of discovering these hidden truths within ourselves.
Wow, that's a beautiful quote.
Yeah.
And suddenly the word serendipitous wasn't just a dictionary definition anymore. It was connected to this idea of self-discovery and creative expression.
Precisely. And that's when I realized that vocabulary isn't just about memorizing definitions. It's about connecting words to experiences, emotions, and ideas. It's about finding the words that resonate with our own unique way of seeing the world.
I love that. It's like each word has its own story to tell its own little universe of meaning waiting to be explored.
Right, and the more we explore those universes, the richer and more nuanced our own language becomes.
I'm starting to see why you're so passionate about vocabulary. It's not just about learning words. It's about expanding your understanding of the world and your place in it.
Well said. And, it's interesting how both of our sources today, even though they're coming from different perspectives, really converge on this idea of active learning.
That's true. They both seem to agree that simply being exposed to new words isn't enough. We have to engage with them on multiple levels, write them down, use them in context, create stories, play games, even draw pictures if that helps. It's about making those words come alive.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really empowering message for anyone looking to expand their vocabulary. It means you're not just a passive recipient of information, you're an active participant in shaping your own learning journey.
So to recap, we've covered a ton of ground today. We talked about the power of writing things down, the magic of reading, the importance of context, the use it or lose it principle, and even how to crack the code of roots, prefixes, and suffixes.
And let's not forget about the vocabulary journal, a personalized space to curate and experiment with new words. Think of it as your vocabulary laboratory where you can mix and match words, create new concoctions, and see what happens.
I love that analogy. It's like we're word alchemists transforming ordinary language into something extraordinary.
Exactly. And remember, the most important ingredient in this alchemy is your own curiosity and creativity.
I think we've covered a lot of ground today, wouldn't you say?
We really have. From vocabulary maps to word games to becoming word alchemists, this has been quite the adventure. You've given our listeners a ton to think about. Any final words of wisdom before we wrap up?
Yeah, we have. From vocabulary maps to word games to becoming word alchemists, this has been quite the adventure. You've given our listeners a ton to think about. Any final words of wisdom before we wrap up?
You know, you're right. This has been an amazing deep dive. I feel like we've learned so much. I'm so excited to go out and use all these strategies myself.
Me too.
Do you have any final words of wisdom for our listeners?
Just this. Remember that language is a living, breathing thing. It's constantly evolving, and so should your vocabulary. Embrace the journey, stay curious, and have fun exploring the boundless world of words. Beautifully said. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling super inspired to revamp my own vocabulary learning routine. Out with the flashcards, in with the word games and storytelling.
I'm right there with you. And who knows, maybe we'll even stumble upon some serendipitous discoveries along the way.
Ooh, I like the way you casually dropped serendipitous in there.
I had to.
So you're already putting those new skills to work.
It's all about practice, right? And
Yeah.
the more we practice, the more confident and articulate we become.
Absolutely. So to our amazing listener out there, we hope this deep dive has left you feeling energized and ready to take your English vocabulary to the next level.
And remember, the most important thing is to find what works best for you. Whether you're a visual learner, a storyteller, a game enthusiast, or a combination of all three, there's a vocabulary learning method out there that's perfect for you.
So get out there, experiment, have fun, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's all part of the learning process.
And if you ever find yourself feeling stuck or overwhelmed, just remember that even the most eloquent speakers started somewhere. We're all on this language learning journey together.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So to wrap things up, we have a little challenge for you, dear listener. Pick one new word from today's episode. Maybe it's serendipity, maybe it's overteaching, or maybe it's something completely different that caught your attention, and try to use it in a conversation today.
See if you can work it into a text message, an email, or even a social media post. And if you're feeling really adventurous, try writing a short story or poem using that word.
Ooh.
The possibilities are endless.
The possibilities are endless, and most importantly, have fun with it. After all, language is meant to be playful, expressive, and ultimately a reflection of who we are.
So go forth, dear listener, and let your words shine.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the wonderful world of vocabulary building, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more language learning adventures. Until next time, happy word nerding.
Thank you for joining us on this journey to enhance your English vocabulary. Remember, building a strong vocabulary is a gradual process that requires practice and persistence. By using the techniques we discussed today, you'll not only memorize new words, but also integrate them into your everyday conversations. Don't forget to engage with us in the comments, share your favorite vocabulary building tips, and let us know how you're progressing on your language journey. Until next time, keep learning, keep practicing,